Hello! We are here in Western Ireland to visit the Tuttles and to learn more about their mission. Join us as we learn more about the Irish culture, the church here, and the plan for the mission going forward. In April 2023, I took a trip with my family to Ireland. We got to enjoy the beauty of Ireland, experience the Irish culture, and visit the Tuttle family only months after starting their mission work. Over the course of our time in Ireland, we had a couple opportunities to sit down with Nick Tuttle and dive into what the mission work looked like for them. We got to learn about their background and what led them to missions, their unique approach to reaching the people of Ireland, and how they were working to spread the love of Jesus in their community.
We'd been doing youth ministry for over 20 years, and we had just moved to Illinois. We'd been there for about a month, so it was maybe July, and I looked over at Jess and I said, I don't know what this means, but there's change in the air. Something's coming. I think we need to start kind of exploring, like, what does ministry look like after this? We looked at campus ministry. We looked at worship ministry, because I do some of that. Preaching, full-time. We searched around, did tons of research. We prayed like crazy, and then I think it was like November of 2019. We were sitting there watching some dumb show on Netflix, I think, and Jess pauses the TV and says, "Hey, what if we just sold all this crap and went and did missions?" When she said that, it was like all those pieces of all those things we'd been looking into and all those experiences kind of all fell into place in this really cool way. We sat down with Rob at the support training. He said, "Hey, listen, I've been talking with Stephen. He feels like kind of what you guys bring to the table is kind of something that they could use there at their, with their church in Ireland. And we'd like to, if you guys are okay with it, we'd like to kind of try to tentatively point you in that direction." And so that was it. Like, that was from then on, it was Tuttles in Ireland. We got the banner and made up the stuff. And Ireland's a tricky discussion when it comes to missions. A lot of times when you're thinking about missions, you're thinking about things like Project Joshua, where it's to unreached people groups, the 1040 window, things like that, where there's a ton of need, right? But the thing that doesn't get discussed is Europe in general. Europe in general is actually, right now, according to Operation World, sits right around 97% lost. So that means that out of the entire continent of Europe, that only 3% of Europe has any sort of relationship with Jesus whatsoever. And Ireland is an even more complicated discussion on that, because 91% of the population of Ireland, which is 5 or 6 million people altogether, but 91% of them would identify as Catholic. But the trick with that is that in the same breath, they would also, a lot of them would tell you that they're also atheists or agnostics, or the term I heard the other day was apatheist, which is like they don't even care enough to be an atheist. They're just apathetic about the whole deal. I thought that was a very, very clever term. They would identify, 91% of them would identify as Catholic. It's not a practicing Catholicism like we would think of in the States. And it's actually estimated that around 98.5 to 99% of the nation of Ireland doesn't have any relationship with Jesus whatsoever. So there's a lot of need. There's a lot of opportunity. It's rocky soil, so it's kind of slow going in some ways. There's just oodles and gobs and tons and tons and tons of opportunity for advancing the kingdom. And, we don't have any kind of illusions about coming in and saving Ireland. Obviously we don't do the saving, but we just want to show them what a relationship with Jesus really looks like. And that a lot of the things that they have tied up in this idea of religion and what the church is all about and what they're after, and like that Jesus himself is a lot different than what they've come to expect and know. And so
Nick and Jess Tuttle and their 4 kids moved to Ireland in August 2022. After 20 years of youth ministry in the United States, they left almost everything to give the people of Ireland a picture of what Jesus really looks like.
Hey, we're the Tuttles. We are missionaries in Western Ireland. We live in a town called Uachtarard, just north of Galway. Somebody said a phrase the other day that Ireland's spiritual gift is in cynicism. What they meant by that is that if you go in and you just off the cuff started to have a conversation about something that had anything to do with faith, that door is going to get closed in your face pretty quickly. I was actually talking to Mark, one of our Irish guys here, the other day. Or no, it was Flossie. It was Flossie when I went out to coffee with him. He's an Irish guy, lives here in town, and he was talking about his family even, is that everybody's really, really, really good at the surface level stuff. It's like they're really comfortable with you on their front porch, right? But you're not getting in the front door, right? For a good while. And even if you get in the front door, you may spend years in that front hallway before you ever really get into their lives in a real and significant way. So much of all of that, the skepticism, the cynicism, the kind of, playing your cards close to your chest, and that keeping everybody at kind of an arm's length, I think all of that centers back on their experience as a culture with England. I think you can't discount that. Because the conversation about Catholics and Protestants is really a conversation about Irish and English in a lot of respects, right? So historically speaking, the church has been weaponized in Ireland as a tool of manipulation in a lot of ways. The English did it, the Catholics did it. Everybody's kind of taking their turn using the church to get what they wanted out of the people of Ireland, and it came to a head, and there were obviously some tumultuous times in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And the people of Ireland really, once that all settled down, there was just this mass exodus from the faith, because they're going like, if this is what Jesus is about, I don't want anything to do with it. I'm tired of this church stuff. All we're doing, we're killing each other, and it's all over this church stuff. Well, it wasn't, though, all at the same time, It was all intertwined and it was all tangled up, but none of it was really Jesus, And so I think that has a ton to do with why they play, they play it close to the vest, because they've went through times where they couldn't trust their neighbors. They're keeping you at arm's length because they don't know who's safe to let in, and when it comes to religious stuff, they're out. They don't want to talk about it until they have a relationship with you. They're just not going to talk about it at all. And a lot of that has to do with these people who were supposed to be the people that took care of them and cared for them and were providing for their spiritual needs, abused that privilege. And so now it's that whole once bitten, twice shy, and it's culture wide. And so it's a very interesting dynamic. Well, one of the things that we've been talking about has led to is that because they keep everybody at arm's length, they don't have a ton of really deep relationships. So there's nobody that they can really, for most Irish people, they've got a lot of surface relationships, but they don't have a ton of really deep ones. And so then when it comes to those hard times, they don't have any deep friendships. They have people that are, they're their mates, they go out, they drink, but they never, it never goes beyond that surface level stuff. And so you got those folks that when those troubled times come, that's all they've got. And then on top of that, you've got this whole kind of vacuum, this void that the church used to fill that is now just empty, right? And so where do you get truth when you can't trust the church or the Bible? Where do you get hope? Where do you get peace? Where do you get joy? Where do you get hope? which I said twice, but that's on purpose. Like, there's this hope vacuum, right? And so what has happened in the nation of Ireland is you've got things like anxiety and depression are through the roof. There's a lot of opportunity, because when we have hope and we have joy and we have peace and we have real authentic relationships that are deeper than just surface level, and somebody can observe that over a long period of time, then you get to have those conversations going, this is different. What is this? What do you have that I don't have this? How do I get this? But they have to know you first. They have to trust you. After 6 months of living here, I wouldn't say we're experts. Like, we're beginning to scratch the surface relationally in the town that we're living in.
Could you tell us a few things about the church right now and the things that are happening right now?
Yeah, so currently, there are 3 teams working at the church in Moycullen Community Christian Church. The Waltons have been in country now for 11 years, but he's our team lead, Stephen is. And then Luke and Tiffany Swain have been in country now for 5 going on 6 years. And then we have been here since August.
When we first showed up at the church in Moycullen, it was just the day after we'd gotten into Ireland. We got to take part in one of their services, and it was a really great experience. Being a church in a mission field, the Moycullen Community Church is a little bit different than churches in the United States. Overall, though, it felt like a small, friendly, and vibrant church. There was coffee, biscuits, and we got to take part in an Irish potluck.
Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven.
All right, guys, good morning. Welcome to church, everyone. All right, so this morning we are kicking off a brand new series that we are calling True-ish. And I love that word ish. Like, it's really like, it's anytime you get a time from an Irish person, like, that's implied, right? And so today we're going to be in Luke chapter 15. My name is Luke, and I am from North Carolina originally. And so I got my Bible degree at Mid-Atlantic Christian University. Ireland ended up being a great fit because we wanted to do church planting, but we didn't want to do it on our own. And so it was nice to be able to come alongside the Waltons who were here before us and to get to help work with the church plant here. Community Christian Church was the church that was planted back in 2015, in November of 2015. So it's about almost 8 years old now, 7.5 years old. The church started with about 7 people, and it's just continued to grow, and people have left, and it's been not restarted, but a new core would come in. And my wife Tiffany and I have lived here for 6 years, and our first Sunday there was 8 people, counting myself, my wife, and the 4 Waltons, so there's 2 other people, and now we are anywhere between 35 and 40 on a Sunday. And so God has done some amazing things, and as a church, one of the things we've often done, the only thing we've really done right sometimes, is just not give up. Just continue doing what God has called us to, and wanting to see people come to know Jesus in Ireland and here in Moycullen.
For you and for Steve and Luke, you all do kind of a lot of the same kind of things as far as just volunteering and being part of the community in a lot of different ways.
Yeah. Luke coaches basketball. Steven coaches rugby. I'm going to be teaching art hopefully soon. But yeah, all of those are just opportunities to meet people and build relationships. And to be of service in the community that we live in. We're not doing that stuff out of any sort of trying to get anything other than just be a part of the community and be that good example and let that kind of speak for itself. So. of our role really for the first couple of years, they've said, is going to be like an in-depth internship of learning the culture, learning how they do church here, learning some of those things that you can't read about and understand. And so we're doing that, learning the culture, learning things like working with the Tidy Towns group, where we go and we pick up trash and we trim trees, and we're working alongside Irish people here in the community. We're not asking anything from them. We're not going out there going, hey, do you know Jesus? Would you like to come to church? We're just picking up trash and doing things like that. In the process of doing that stuff, though, we are building relationships. And our hope is that eventually those relationships will lead to conversations. As we build those relationships and they learn that we're not Catholic, we're not Church of Ireland, but we don't seem like culty people, because that's kind of you're either Irish, Church of Ireland, Catholic, or you're in a cult is kind of how they view things. So learning the community, the Tidy Town stuff, going to the pubs here locally and just spending time being present and building. One of the big things, the last couple of months, they did the Guinness Six Nations rugby tournament. And so we went to Fardy's here in town, which is a pub, and we went to every match that we could get to, and we just spent time cheering for rugby and meeting people. And so, the school system has also been really handy in that, because we've been able to kind of interact on a small level with locals. So all kinds of things like that. One of the big tools, actually, we didn't know it was going to be a ministry tool, but it has been, was getting a dog and walking around. As we take Chief around the neighborhood and around the town, people stop us all the time and are like, hey, that's a beautiful dog. Like, those conversations we've been able to just spontaneously, and again, it's interactions where they can talk with you and meet you. You're not pushing anything, you're not selling anything, you're just talking, and they kind of get to know, they're okay, they're a good sort.
So as opposed to what people would normally think of as like a typical things that missionaries do, or a typical mission field, for you it's a lot more about just developing relationships, trying to show people that you are not some crazy cultist or something. Just showing that you're normal people, and you have something that they don't have.
Yeah. And so, like, it's really, for the most part, missions in Europe is unique in the fact that they don't need anything physical or monetary that we have to offer, right? Like, we're not going to go into Europe and build houses. And so, like, it's not the same as if you were to go to a third world country where you're, like when we went to Mexico and build houses for Casa por Cristos, right? Like, that was something where we could go down and we could meet a physical need, right? And so meeting that physical need gave us the opportunity then to have the conversation. Here, what am I going to give them that they need? So obviously the answer is Jesus. And so it has to be this idea of living out your faith authentically to the point where they go, okay, what is this?
It was cool to see Nick living this relational approach to evangelism out. We would be walking through town or stopping at a coffee shop, and he would be starting conversations and laughing with people. You could tell he was very intentional about building relationships.
If we really start this church plant thing and we want it to be an authentic Irish church, it's a really interesting conversation of like, what does that even really look like? Even our church at Moycullen, Community Christian, we had a Tenebrae service, which is like a Good Friday service where we go through and we read the story of the last moments of Jesus up until his death. And then we stop at the death and everybody just kind of goes home. But everybody had a different reading, and there were, like 6 or 8 different accents. So Ola's from Nigeria. There's the South Africans. Sam is from India. Blake's from California. You've got Mark, he's a homegrown Irish guy here. And then his wife is from Scotland. And there's just this whole group of it's just an interesting conversation of like, what does a truly Irish church look like? And really, as Ireland becomes more and more global, the church in Ireland becomes more and more multicultural. And here in Uachtarard, the nursing home has shut down, and they filled it with Ukrainian refugees. And then there's a hotel out at Man's Cross that is also full of Ukrainian refugees. And so, like, in our area alone, there are hundreds of Ukrainian refugees. Well, that's something that is a really interesting opportunity for a church here in this area, but it's also kind of tricky, because how do you meet that need? And you're spending all that time and all that effort on this Ukrainian thing, and you're building this group, but you're also trying to build this uniquely Irish thing here. How do you balance all that? And I think that's the church being the church too. Like, I think that there's an element of that we shouldn't even, we just can't worry about that. We got to let God do what he does. So
what do you see as the next steps for the mission here?
I think the first thing on the agenda is to continue to build relationships. And I don't think that's ever going to change. I think that's going to be a constant. And then we're working together with the Swains on kind of our plan of, what is the next phase? What does the church plant here in Uachtarard really look like? Here in the next year or two, the plan is to have a church planted. It's going to start small, obviously. It's going to take time. We're going to be looking at probably small group Bible studies, some form or fashion, and then as the momentum kind of builds, to be able to transition into, maybe we're we will eventually be having a service on Sunday mornings, and then we'll get to the point where we're also doing some outreach events and things like that in the community, and that's all kind of phased down the road, but it's fun to think about, because again, there's so much opportunity. There's so many people in our area who need the joy and the hope and the peace that Jesus offers. And so, yeah.
During our time in Ireland, we had a lot of great conversations with the Tuttles and others from Moycullen Community Christian Church and the surrounding communities. The Irish people have a different perspective and history than we do in the United States, and that plays an important role on their receptiveness to Christ and any form of religion. It's all too easy for us to see everything from our own point of view and forget that other people see the world very differently. As we returned home on the long flight to the United States, we were struck with the realization that whether it is people in a third world country with desperate physical needs, people in developed countries with everything they could ever need, or the neighbors down the street, everyone has a need for Christ, and it is important for us to ask ourselves how it is best to reach those people. With the cultural and religious situation in Ireland, the Tuttles certainly have their work cut out for them. But with their relational approach to evangelism, positive impact on the local community, and God's continued support and providence, the work in Ireland will continue to grow and prosper for many years to come.